Good morning, LinkedIn. Welcome to Let's Build Daily. I'm your host, Chris Carolin. What a week. Happy Friday, everybody. Um, After a couple days of talking a lot about stuff we don't control and we don't have all the data and all the understanding about what HubSpot is doing and the choices they make and uh, how everything is perceived across the LinkedIn echo chamber and beyond. Um, I wanted to talk about something we can control, which is communication and the way we communicate, especially as it relates to change. Um, this was something I was missing internally. So after, a 23-month marketing leadership role and then a 10-month marketing leadership role, last year, I had a couple months um, before we started this agency to really think through what happened um, and what I could have done differently. Um, you know, and in a way that, you know, only a chronic overthinker can. Um, and what I kept coming back to was the biggest challenge that I had is being brought in to do something brand new that the organizations had never done before, and then not having a clear path, an easy path to communicating what was going on. Who is this new team? Who's this new guy trying to change everything about what I do every day? And why is he here? You know, without the communication, without that communication channel, um, why should what I'm doing be appreciated or understood or, any of this stuff? And then you start to have to handle it in all these one-to-one conversations, which usually I could cross that chasm. But when that takes a 1 hour conversation and you got to do it with everybody every week, it's not scalable. And eventually you got to start doing stuff. So you don't have time to talk to everybody and keep them in the loop on a one-on-one basis. So naturally, the friction starts and challenges arise. So I created this framework, Convey, because I was also looking for cool ways to create a framework that connected to our business and uh, branding and productization and how do we start to align these things as well as address the problems that I had in the inside, because that was very important to me as we started this business, is not to just go and take people's money, because there was some of that feeling from the inside that I could get buy-in for the vision of becoming the number one resource in the space, for being the best partner, for making it easy to do business, making it easy to be successful as a customer. I could get the budget for it. I could get brand new teams to do it. But then the inability of the organization to change, to manage change, to allow for training, prioritization, to create an internal communication plan and strategy. It just wasn't there. And that, I want to say like prevented success by itself, but it certainly impacted the results. And while I'm definitely understanding that this stuff takes longer, than maybe I was suggesting, as both companies are moving forward um, with executing a lot of what was started. I don't think it has to take as long as everybody says. Especially, it's one of the reasons I love tools like HubSpot. It doesn't have to take as long as everybody thinks. But in the face of change and change management and people management, it's a lot easier to side on the, we can't do anything right now. We can't boil the ocean. We can't focus on this. We've got too much stuff to worry about every day. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to actually solve for stuff like digital transformation. And I was listening to the Marketing Book podcast this morning, and there was a book on there, the Customer Copernicus, which is about how to be customer led. A lot of people say that they are customer centric, customer first, but in reality, they are not, and they know it because it's hard. It's hard work. And one of the concepts mentioned was burningness. And it's kind of like you need to feel something burning to do something about it. And that there's 3 different levels in this order, which are pain, fear, and ambition. And so I started to relate that to what I wanted to talk about today, because it was on my mind, but also what I experienced internally. And it was almost like, to get the buy-in, I come in understanding there's pain. The only fear I really know about is, stuff like we can't start talking about this openly because then our competitors will know. Usually fear is related to competitive situations and circumstances, or fears of falling behind are always feel like they're there, but whether we act on them is another thing. So I come in having felt that myself, and like talking to everybody for 3 months, understanding the pain that they're going through. And then I kind of skip to like, right, ambition, right? Like, because I think as a leader, if you have to talk about change, and you have a choice to either talk about it through a pain lens, a fear lens, and an ambition lens, right? It's easy and more fun to talk about it through the ambition lens, where it's like, hey, these are the goals we have. This is the growth we're seeing. EBITDA looks amazing. Everybody's going to get great bonuses, right? Meanwhile, the pain and fear, is still like happening, and we're not addressing it, right? And so the pain gets talked about a lot, but like, how do we move forward? How do we address it effectively? Because what I experienced, I come in, from this ambition perspective. This leadership team has these goals. If we focus on customer experience, if we, build out this digital infrastructure, do some digital transformation, we can hit those goals. Everybody's going to save time. Everybody's going to make more money. Why is that a bad thing? Why aren't we moving forward with this stuff? And at the end of my last tenure, I realized some of the fear that wasn't being said until somebody, had to tell me, was that the fear of change in terms of, will I have my job tomorrow because Chris is implementing HubSpot? And that was very helpful to understand, because at the end of the day, if your job is 100% data entry and there's nothing else you could be doing, for the company, it is very easy to replace you with software and tools and automation and AI. But in most cases, I mean, I didn't see any cases where that was actually true from the sense of could that person be providing value, creating value for the organization in other ways? Because all these people doing data entry and like breaking their backs for customers have a lot of knowledge related to customers and why they are having to do so much data entry, all the mistakes that are happening because of data entry. They're the ones that feel how bad these systems are, and are going above and beyond to make sure it impacts the customers less, right? So they could be the ones, and they're likely to be the ones if we let them be, to have a voice in how this stuff can get better, how what things we can do, what preventative measures we can take, how we need to build these systems to do customer experience in the right way, to start doing all the things we talked about. We talk about doing, especially when we're considering the partner, mindset that we talked about earlier in the week. All that stuff takes proactive relationship management conversations. We're not trying to automate away the personal human experience here. We're trying to make time for it because we all want to do it and we never get to it. So that was a very real fear that I understood. And they didn't go deep in the podcast, but I imagine, that's part of, right? Fear for losing a job might lead to a positive change as well, which is I'm going to learn about AI and use it to be better, right? I'm going to learn about this thing. I'm going to become an expert in CRM or HubSpot, right? That's part of what the fear is, but then you got to match it with the ambition of actually getting better, and growth, and that kind of mindset, which is not easy for everybody, but everybody can do it. I'm a big believer in fixed versus growth mindset, and that growth mindset is a teachable thing. Our brains are built to be rewired. But that's probably a different topic. So for another day. So the Convey framework, excuse me. The Convey framework is what I came up with to kind of, bring all my thoughts together into one, brandable, sellable, consultable. Is that a thing? Consultatable? Something I could start communicating to people in a way, and how can they address this issue? And now we're in the space that we're in, seeing the exact same problems, no matter the company, no matter the industry, no matter the size. This internal communication problem is real. This digital transformation problem is real. And when you think about everything we learn in school, the only way you learn about stuff is if your bosses teach you about it or you experience everything the hard way. And since most bosses didn't learn about it on their path, they're not going to teach you about it. So where are we learning this stuff? Internal communication, especially. So this framework, Convey, stands for C, current state. And now that we're doing what we're doing, and after I went through the RevOps boot camp, that was definitely what I was missing on the inside. And I was missing it because I could describe this picture of our systems are terrible. We need to personalize a customer experience, and the data is nowhere near available to us to do that. I can't even send out an email to customer list because you can't give me a customer list because the data is buried in the ERP. I could paint that picture, right? But then when I go back in the lab and I design HubSpot and I implement HubSpot, and I'm like, hey, everybody, here it is, problem solved. I didn't do the work of communicating the in between, creating the foundation of common language for here's how we know it now. Here's what all this stuff means to us. Here's where we need to go to get our goals. And here's how HubSpot's going to help us do that. Right. Instead of just applying like, hey, here's how we're going to track, leads. And this is what deal stages are. And like, you're just jumping right to the end because nobody knows what the hell you're talking about. And it's very easy to shut you off. So now that we're over here and I'm starting to see this, and it's a well-known fact, this is where it's like, this is why I say I don't want to take people's money. Like I could sell people, I could continue to sell people on those concepts because they're tried and true results driven frameworks like they ask you answer and story brand and all these things are fairly easy to understand on the surface of how you can get to the number one resource in your space. But the amount of work required to get there is never understood. And that's why I don't want to sign up for saying, hey, we're just going to implement they ask you answer. We're going to, we're going to, start walking that way. And then when we get there, there'll be results, right? Look at all these other companies doing it, right? But the stuff in between from starting and understanding the framework of they ask you answer versus actually implementing it for a year, 2 years, 5 years is significantly different. And that's the part that everybody under resources because they don't understand it. Why don't they understand it? Because they don't even understand what's happening right now. Like the ability to map out a process. And I should caveat that they don't understand what's happening right now in the front office, in the customer facing departments. In industrial manufacturing, they've understood what's happening in production for years. Lean manufacturing, ISO quality manuals. Those get very in-depth about all the ins and outs of your non-human process and non-human data, right? Maybe it's because all that stuff can be just mathed, right? It's very black and white and much less subjective. Input equals output, and how fast can we get there, right? Customer behavior, human behavior is not that at all, but we need to try and understand ways to serve it for our business in the most standardized way so that we can scale and grow while serving the customer first. So that's my assumption as to why, nobody has a current state map that goes beyond production or beyond the service that's provided. Right. So current state is about, auditing existing strategies, systems, processes, tools, and capabilities. Because, oh man, it's very easy to say, hey, we're growing. We need more people, but we don't need all the same people. What new positions do we need? Oh, we want to do this. All right, let's go hire that person. Right. We don't know what they need to do, but we know we need the role. So let's bring them in. So we create these goals. We look at, consultants and SaaS vendors to tell us how to get there, but then we never assess who can do what in the organization, right? Where are the capability gaps, right? And when I keep hearing the phrase "keep it simple," it's counterproductive, right? clearly there's a problem when nobody can digitally transform, when it's so impossible to adopt something like CRM that should be the most important tool, most valuable tool in your business. When we can't manage change, right? We just let it happen to us. And then we get upset about turnover rates, and we don't know how to deal with it. And like this is something we can control. Like, and you shouldn't require an ISO audit to be coming up and forcing you to audit your systems and processes and map them out. Like, so maybe that's what's needed, on the customer side of things and the front office side, even though you get a little bit of that in ISO 9001. But do we really need regulation and, you paying $5,000 a year to get some seal, of approval, in order for you to do this? Like, I mean, I guess, but if anybody has any ideas, like, I'm willing to, like, create that, um, you know, probably, like, seriously profitable money-making machine. If you know how accreditations and certifications work on the manufacturing side of things, can be a racket, can feel like a racket sometimes. But understanding where you're at, simple as that, like 100% under your control. And the problem I see as I run into this, and I'm told I can't do the things that I want to do to understand this because leaders don't have time, or each stakeholder doesn't need to worry about this other stuff. Understanding it's all connected. And if the leader doesn't clearly understand what the individual stakeholder needs to be doing and the tools they need, then you'll never get to where you want to go. Like, you will implement systems you don't need or you don't know how to use, and all these things, and we'll end up with a 3-year implementation project for an ERP that now we don't even use. Like, and why are we okay with this status quo? Because it's too hard to address. Like, I'm not here for that. Like, I can't be. So taking the time to understand current state, involving everybody that is about to be impacted, and getting a clear picture, super important. Now that we have this current state, observations, analyze the current state. What's working well, pain points, where are we not aligned like we thought we were? Why are we having trouble with this change? What's getting in the way? It's amazing once you get the right people in the room and document everything. It's not that hard anymore to figure out what the hell's going on. And again, this is creating that common language so that once people start to, like, you remove all these gray areas that people love to live in, because then they're not held accountable and they don't have to be responsible for the change or for what's wrong, right? They can say that, let's just get HubSpot and that'll take care of business. No, it won't. You got to deal with this stuff. So making observations, right? Not just creating current state, giving it to the partner, and then, hey, give us the future state. We're ready. Like, no, we've got to understand what's going on and why. What's new insights. So actually taking these observations and creating insights related to the changes that we know need to be made, which changes actually are boiling the ocean and we can't tackle them right now. But how much of the ocean can we boil? Like, which part of the ocean is boiling us? And we need to either get out or start, creating some protection and getting in line, matching the energy, right? So what observations can we use for new insights? especially who does it apply to, right? Who is it impacting in the organization? Almost all this trickles down to the customer, but where is it trickling down to the customer? Validating and verifying. Again, talking to everybody is important. And if you don't know that the leader or the champions are educated on this stuff, how often do you talk to a leader that clearly has no idea what's going on the front lines? If that's the case, then them making a decision on a tool that impacts their customer facing team without understanding how it's going to impact the customer facing team doesn't go good, doesn't go well, right? It might be the best thing for that team. It might be the absolute correct decision, but it's always going to take longer and be harder than it should if they're not involved, if they haven't confirmed your insights. And how often do we just, because they're the ones that start to implement these systems, right? And that's how we start just creating our paper processes inside the modern system, right? And then now it's turns into a very bad ROI because we're not using it the way that the leader intended or the reason the decision was made. We're trying to make it do other stuff, right? So validating and verifying these insights and observations with anybody they impact. Educate after this. Educate on expectations. Expectations. Clearly communicate upcoming changes and new expectations. Provide proper training and resources to build capabilities. Celebrate wins and milestones. Similar to validating and verifying. If I bring in a new tool or if I bring in a new process and I don't let you know how your responsibilities might be changing, how this changes your day to day, what's expected of you now beyond a quota or beyond we're moving from 4-hour, ticket resolution to 1-hour response times. Like, if I don't tell you things like that, right, how can you meet expectations? You don't know where they're at. So almost everything's going to be a surprise. And we don't like being surprised. We don't like being uncertain. So if you're not setting expectations for me, it's very hard for me to get on board with what you're trying to accomplish. And these expectations are communicated on a regular cadence. Town halls, monthly town halls, regular leadership retreats, offsites. Like, this is where the digital internal communication stuff is lacking, right? That stuff is good. You need to keep your teams in the know, but when it's just once a month and it's not recorded and you don't share the slides, and I wasn't there that day, now I'm hearing it from other people, right? Guess what? They're not communicating it the same way you wanted me to hear it. These are the kinds of things, like, without regular communication in play, like, you're not conveying the message here just because you say it once a month, right? And if you're saying it once a month and no feedback's coming back during that meeting, right? And just because you're opening the floor for questions, if nobody's raising their hands, it doesn't mean they don't have feedback. It means it's not a safe space for them more often than not. So even expectations like that, we're doing this new thing. We expect feedback. We want feedback, right? Supporting that. Expectations all over the place. clarifying which expectation, what they should be expecting from you, right? All of that, getting much more clear about that. And then, yes, getting buy-in from all stakeholders on the plan forward. Listening to concerns and empowering people to contribute, their ideas and feedback. And this is what I was missing on the inside. I did this, and this is like a constant effort, right? Again, all these things, like, you're not a partner one day and then a vendor the next day, right? You don't just get to call yourself a partner and now for life you're viewed as a partner. Similar here, if you just convey it one time, you're not conveying anything. If anything, you're conveying the lack of importance in the thing that you're trying to communicate. Because I'm hearing from customers every day, this task is popping up for me every day. That's much more important to me because I'm feeling it every day. Just like it's work to stay top of mind for customers, these concepts and what you want your teams to be doing and the change that's happening needs to stay top of mind for your internal teams. And if you're not keeping it top of mind, and then you say, why aren't you doing this process that I trained you last month? It's because it hasn't come up since last month. And now you ask me to get in there again, and I don't have access to training materials. I don't remember what I did a month ago, but you're trying to hold me accountable and we haven't talked about it in a month. Like, that's not top of mind, right? That's unrealistic. But it happens all the time. And I'm guilty of that, right? I did like 3 months of reconnaissance in the organization. Then you don't hear from me because I'm getting to work, trying to make good on the promises I made. And then there's a gap. And then I come in saying, hey, remember what we talked about? And remember how I said, like, we had agreement, you were bought in, and that's not the case. Like, that may have been true, but a lot has happened since then. And you just unintentionally exclude people from the process, and it just creates this space of uncertainty. And just like time kills deals, time kills buy-in. So doing this over and over, making sure you got the yes, making sure everybody's on board, making sure everybody's understanding what's happening is of paramount importance. As I made this, I made it very, I understood, like, this is the change, right? Then I thought, like, why are we needing to change, right? That's where the partner mindset came from. Usually that's what it's something like that, right? We need to show up differently for our customers because we understand the modern buying experience is different and we need to start serving it. How do we start doing that? Not by just buying SaaS software. It's a mindset shift, right? What does that look like? Now, how does it impact our organization? Well, the current state is probably we're not a partner. We are a vendor. So establishing that. If you don't do that, then people might think they're already partners. Hey, I talk to this customer every day. We have a great relationship. I don't understand, why everything needs to change. They never tell me, I don't hear from customers about anything being bad. I feel like we're in a partnership, right? And then down the line, the experience is different. And the customer at that point doesn't feel like you're a partner. So that's why this stuff needs to be communicated throughout the organization on a regular basis. And without doing this, it makes change nearly impossible. Yet there's not a lot of training on this stuff out there. There's no space for it. It's not prioritized in organizations. And instead, we just keep hearing about digital transformation fails. and inability to match the customer experience, inability to keep up with hiring needs, right? Because turnover. And instead, we point the finger at the people that can't just step up like we expected everybody to do before, right? We're not putting people in a position to win because we're not doing things like this. We're not communicating with them. We're not setting clear expectations. We're not getting their buy-in. And the last thing you want to do, in my opinion, is build an organization around, full of people looking to get paid, and that's it, right? Because that's not good enough anymore for a lot of, you just got to do better, right? We're past that. Like, we want to show up and do meaningful work as human beings. And if we don't know what the meaning is, it's not going to be meaningful work. And as soon as meaningful work shows up, we're out the door. So let's do a little bit better here. All of these things, current state, observations, new insights, validation, expectation setting, and taking the time to get the yes or the no, right? Now you're at the place where if somebody says no, if they don't like this plan, it's not what they signed up for, that's okay. They just can't stay here anymore. And you're going to help them find a fit somewhere else. Right. But this space of not getting the yes because you're worried about how they react to change, like that kills the whole thing. Right. So handling these, is 100% inside of your control as a leader, as a group of leaders, as an organization. And if you're choosing to let external factors and the fires that you experience every day, if you just choose to keep firefighting them instead of dealing with any of this, right, in a meaningful and intentional way, it's going to be hard. It's going to be real hard. You're probably already experiencing how hard it is. And I hope that you don't take all your teams for granted and just watch the burnout happen. And then, stuff's not going to, it's just not fun for everybody. And if you can control something like this, why wouldn't you? So I invite you to find the opportunities to make space on the calendar to make time for this, and let's grow. Have a great weekend, everybody.